If your relationship with your clients has ever felt heavy, if you feel like you're the one pushing them up the mountaintop, if you feel like they are looking to you to help them solve every problem that comes up, and they almost like want you to take ownership for their journey and their experience, and this is creating stress and pressure and a feeling of heaviness around the responsibility that you feel for the clients that you work with and their results and their transformation and their journey, this transmission is going to be super helpful for you. So I want to talk here about the idea of a savior complex. This is a dynamic that comes up quite a bit in coaching businesses where an entrepreneur is facilitating some kind of transformation, healing, helping, supporting others. It's something that I played out in my business for years. And when I became aware of it, it actually was something that was relatively easy to shift, and it opened up a whole new door of possibility for me. New chapter of co-creation with my clients that felt so much easier, so much lighter. It took away so much of that pressure and heaviness of responsibility that I used to feel around the relationship that I have with my clients. And actually, it unlocked a whole new chapter of scale because I didn't feel that like density and that heaviness that self-sabotaged my capacity to grow and scale. So the idea of a savior complex is something that gets played out a lot in business. It's basically where you feel like it's your responsibility to save your clients. It's your responsibility to get results for your clients. It's in some way you taking ownership for their journey of expansion and growth. And I was just on a collective call this morning with a client who became aware that this is coming up in her business. And I asked her, I said, what do you feel like the savior complex is doing for you? Because underneath there's these dynamics, there's always a benefit or a perceived benefit. And that's why we have these things that get played out in our business. And she said, Jason, it gives me a sense of importance. It makes me feel like I'm important, but it's also this like conditional importance. Because when my client has a breakthrough or things are going well for them, I feel really good about myself. And then when things aren't moving in the way that I would expect them to move, or maybe they're having a hard time, I feel terrible, like I've failed them. And so she is kind of on this roller coaster where she's tied her sense of value and worthiness to the journey that her clients are taking, which inherently is not within her control. It was like she has influence over it, right? Of course, like, her mentorship, her coaching, her guidance plays a role in their transformation. But at the end of the day, it's their journey. It's not yours, right? So what I find behind the savior complex, behind you taking ownership for the results of your clients, is always a part of you that has conditionally hooked your value, your sense of worthiness to the outside world. And the problem with this is that it is conditional because, when your clients are winning, quote unquote, you feel good. And then when, maybe they're having a hard time, you don't. And so my invitation to her was, what if we were to let go of this idea that you've created, this story that you've created, that you need to do something in the outside world in order to feel worthy and valuable? And what if you were just worthy and valuable because you exist? What if you were enough just the way you are right now? There's nothing you needed to do for your clients. There's no transformation you needed to make happen. Just this knowing, this realization, this remembrance that who you are is worthy. That you are enough just because you exist. I asked her to breathe that in, and maybe you can breathe that in with me too right now. She said, I feel my heart opening. Behind the savior complex is always a part of us that has created a conditional sense of worthiness. And then we look to our clients, we look to our business, we look to the outside world to give us that feeling of wholeness that we desire, and yet it's always right here. And the only real way to experience that in a way that is not tied to conditions, in other words, in a way that is not up and down and subject to the whims of the world, is to take your power back and to remember who you really are. When I know myself to be worthy, when I know myself to be enough, when I'm not using my business as a way of feeling those things, the savior complex disappears. And what I've realized in my own journey and mentorship is when I remember who I really am, when I'm grounded in who I really am, my own inherent worthiness, not tied to conditions, I can show up and I can create a space for somebody else to unfold and their journey to take place in a way that it needs to for them, not for me, not so I can feel good about myself, but so that they can have the experience that they're meant to have through this relationship and through this journey that they're taking. And the paradox I've found is that the moment I no longer need them to change, to succeed, to win, to get some kind of result so I can feel good about myself, is the moment I unlock the doors to their highest expansion, because they feel safe and they feel like they are now in a container, in a relationship, a mentorship with someone who fully accepts however their journey chooses to unfold and whatever they choose to do next. Doesn't mean I don't support them. It doesn't mean that I don't hold them to their highest self. Doesn't mean that I don't offer reflections, provide the best resources I can to help them. But ultimately, at the end of the day, releasing this attachment that they need to do or be anything in order for me to feel like I've done a good job or that I'm important. And this is the journey of really reconnecting back to our own innate wholeness, our own innate enoughness. The beautiful thing about this shift is that it allows you to release all of this pressure of responsibility, the heaviness that so many entrepreneurs feel around client relationships. If you are taking ownership for the journey that your clients are walking, you will feel the weight of every move they make, of every decision they make, of every result they create or don't create. And what I found is that when it comes to growing and scaling a business, the weight or the perceived weight of responsibility, which is created most often by the savior complex, is one of the biggest internal things that will get in the way of being able to grow and scale a business. Because if you get to a certain point in your business where you have a roster full of clients where you're holding a sense of responsibility for their transformation and journey, every single one of them, your subconscious mind will self-sabotage the growth of your business because it believes that signing more clients is going to mean more weight, more pressure, more responsibility, more of what you don't really want. In other words, more pain. I've often said this, your subconscious mind is really good at protecting you from what it perceives will bring you pain. And so the savior complex becomes like a ceiling in your business. And a lot of people just they self-sabotage scale because their mind is not going to let them hold more. So the shift, the move from holding all of this, holding someone else's journey, taking responsibility for their transformation, letting go of that, releasing back into this, grounding back into the awareness of my own inherent wholeness, my worthiness, my enoughness, my rootedness in God, my connectedness to who I really am, the awareness that there's nothing that I need to be, do, create, make, achieve through someone else in order to feel that worthiness, that is just inherently there because it's the ground of my being and who I really am. When I know myself, when I'm connected to myself and who I really am, I don't seek to create wholeness through the world, through my clients, through my business. And that is when I can show up in a way that truly allows others to unfold in the way that is truly meant for them.